Hey there! In this video I want to show you how you can easily create a code space with which you can implement Solana Anchor smart contracts without having to install anything on your PC. You can even do that with a tablet computer. So for this you need this Anchor Codespace template that I created on GitHub, and you use this template function where you create your new repository. So basically you're copying the repository that I created where everything for the Codespace is already set up. So you give it a name, let's say Anchor test, say whether it's public or private, and say create repository. This will now create all the files from the template repository into your repository. It only takes a few seconds. Then in the next step you have to go to the settings, Codespaces, and set up the pre-build. What this is doing is it creates a GitHub action that pre-builds the codespace, which is then used whenever you create a new codespace, which reduces the time by a lot. You can leave all these settings here as they are, almost. You have to select a branch, in this case main. I would recommend to say only on configuration change, otherwise you will need a lot of GitHub action time for this. And then you say create. Now you can see in the actions that your action is already started for the first time, and now the codespace is built. This takes around 20 to 25 minutes, and we'll come back when this is finished. With this, our code space is now created, and we can go to the repository again, and this time under this code button you find normally you see the local tab, but you can switch to the Codespaces tab and then simply say create codespace on main. This will now load the pre-built codespace that we created earlier, and it doesn't need to install anything because in the pre-built everything was already installed that we defined in the Codespace configuration. And here in this Codespace, you will see in a moment, this is basically a Visual Studio Code editor which runs on a Docker container. So in this Docker container, everything you need for the Solana Anchor smart contract is already set up. So you don't have to install anything. You can start coding right away. So after starting for a while, we will see the content of our repository appearing here. Okay, now that our repository is loaded and the editor is loaded, we can start to use the code editor as we would use our local PC. So in this case, it's empty. It's still empty. But in this repository, you find the init anchor project shell script. And if you execute it as described here in the README, by first making it executable, you will see that everything is set up for an Anchor project. So now I start the Initialize script, and it will first create a Solana wallet and airdrop some Sol into the Solana wallet. Then it will create an Anchor project, which is created in the Anchor test subdirectory. After this setup is done, the subdirectory will be merged with the root directory, so everything is inside the root directory. And we'll wait a bit until this is finished. Now that the Anchor project was merged with the root directory, it will initialize the code workspace by doing the initial builds. It will call the npm install and the yarn install and the Anchor build. And afterwards, everything is set up, and you can code with all the IntelliSense features that Visual Studio Code provides you with.